Chapter 18 Aytthaya Lessons from a Cosmopolitan Kingdom. Arbitrary power is most easily established on the ruins of liberty abused to licentiousness. George Washington. Aytthaya would be my final frontier, the last adventure in Thailand before heading home, and I wanted to do it right. Not just postcard right, but dig into the dirt and life memory right. 3 weeks out, I started researching private tour companies, hoping to avoid the kind of guide who just points at a chetty and pronounces proudly, "Brick, old, look around." I had asked Charlie about my idea back then, and she said that not only was it worth the visit, but she'd happily come too, claiming it was incredible. Of course, the universe changed our plans, but I still wanted to go, to see Aytthaya through not only my eyes, but to imagine the wonder glowing in Charlie's as well, to honor our plans. I found exactly what I was looking for in a guide. I'll call him Sam. A university history professor by weekday, Sam moonlighted as a private tour guide for travelers who wanted more than the random hookup guided by someone who has to get back by 3 to pick up the kids from school. Add to that a driver named Sira who had a marvelous smile and a comfortable luxury sedan with blessedly effective air conditioning, and we were off. Now, I'd love to say that the trip was filled with laughs and antics, and while we shared a few good chuckles, Aytthaya isn't that kind of place. I wasn't in the mood for laughs anyway. Aytthaya doesn't lend itself to comic relief. What those ruins offer instead is a sobering, gut-wrenching lesson in insolence, greed, brutality, and the revolting creativity of human cruelty. Aytthaya. Say it right, or be judged by Thai grandmothers everywhere. Was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1991, and it earned it for more reasons than I've got fingers and toes. Once one of Southeast Asia's richest and most powerful kingdoms, Aytthaya morphed from a swampy plains trade hub to a full-blown empire, changing the continent's commercial DNA along the way. It was wealthy, obscenely so, but it was also cosmopolitan in a way that puts most modern cities to shame. Foreign merchants weren't just welcomed, they were given their own neighborhoods. Dutch, Portuguese, Chinese, Persian, Japanese, each with their own quarters on the far sides of the rivers, like some ancient international flea market collective, but with elephants. Cultures collided, mingled, and eventually blended, creating something new and unmistakably Thai. This wasn't just a melting pot. It was a garam masala blend from corners of the globe that had never seen each other before. And the kingdom's real estate? Prime. As the saying goes, location, location, location. 100 kilometers inland from the Gulf of Thailand, Aytthaya was built on an island formed by the convergence of 3 rivers, the Chao Phraya, Lopburi, and Pa Sak. The choice of that geography was no accident or dumb luck. That island created a natural buttress against pirates and seaborne invasions while keeping trade flowing like cash into a casino. It also gave the kings convenient choke points for taxation. Commerce flourished, so did bureaucracy. Before Aytthaya was a kingdom, it was a trading post. And before it was that, the future island inhabitants lived and traded in the mosquito-rich lowland plains where Prince Utong, allegedly the son of a wealthy Chinese merchant, decided to plant his flag. The origin story has a few variations, but most agree on this. In 1350 AD, a plague broke out. Utong, ever the practical visionary, and possibly immune from infectious disease because, king, led his people away from pestilence and death in search of higher ground and better opportunities. After several days trekking across the plains, they arrived across the banks from a river island. Strategic. Safe. Saleable. In 1351 AD, Utong founded his new capital, Aytthaya, and gave himself a promotion. Now, King Ramatibodi I, he got busy in a big way. The name Ayutthaya is derived from Ajaya, Sanskrit for invincible, and referenced the mythical city of Ayutthaya in the Ramayana. It was branding with intent and possibly the first genius stroke of promotional marketing. And build he did, using the vast resources around him hardwood timber, clay, stone, and straw, and the kind of boundless ambition that ends in either empire or disaster. He carved out his kingdom. Locally, it was known as Krung Thai, the Thai kingdom, and for a while it lived up to the name. The Dutch, French, Portuguese, Chinese, Mon, Malays, Persians, Japanese, and even Armenians came to trade. You name them, they were there, hawking everything from silk, sugar, salt, ceramics, beads and shells, slaves and spices. Things went well. Until they didn't. Enter Burma, stage left, foaming at the mouth. By the early 1500s, Ayutthaya was not just successful, it was a glaring beacon of success across the entire southeastern continent. And nothing irritates an insecure neighbor more than someone else's thriving tax base. In 1548 AD, the Burmese, technically the Toungoo dynasty, decided they'd like Ayutthaya for themselves. You know, as a gift. To themselves. Cue the Age of War. The prize? Not only land, slaves, and riches, though there were plenty of all. Burma wanted the seal, the royal nod from China recognizing Ayutthaya as an official trading partner. That bit of diplomatic gravitas was the ancient world's green light to print as much money through trade as you could dream of. Burma wanted in. So they invaded. And lost. King Maha Chakrapat, great name, got a ring to it, rallied the troops. Fortifications were rebuilt, mud barricades gave way to tall, thick brick walls. Cannons, courtesy of Chinese trade partners, appeared. The diamond fortress, Pomfet, was constructed to keep things, and people, in check. It was not just defensive, with more than enough firepower to blow an invading armada out of the river, but an economic juggernaut as well. Ships had to stop, report, unload, and be thoroughly taxed. Burma returned in 1569 and succeeded that time, albeit only briefly. Ayutthaya became a vassal state, though only for 15 years. But the Thai don't mind playing the long game. They declared independence, got a little brutal, and sent the invaders packing. But it wasn't only the Burmese. The Khmer of Cambodia saw the weakness and damage inflicted and decided in 1570 AD that war might not only be fun, but profitable as well. It didn't bode well for them, and after a short-lived siege, they were forced to retreat back to Cambodia. So went the next century. Raids, sieges, retaliation, trade, recovery. Over and over. War was a cycle, not an exception. But all the while, Ayutthaya opened new trade routes to India, Persia, and Africa. It exported rice. So much rice. Salt, fish and seafood, hardwoods, sugarcane, arak, a type of rum, and more rice. But the real money makers? Contraband by today's standards. Elephant tusk ivory, rhino horn, kingfisher feathers, sold as aphrodisiacs. Make you strong. Yeah, sure it does. Bling accessories and miracle cures. Because history repeats itself. So do scams. To defend itself, Ayutthaya also innovated militarily. Enter Krabi Krabong, literally sword and staff, a form of martial arts that involved bladed weapons, flying limbs, and an elvish flair for the dramatic. Eventually, Krabi Krabang evolved into Muay Thai, which is what happens when you remove the blades and keep the knees, feet, fists, and elbows. Today, Muay Thai is a revered symbol of national pride, and rightly so. And of course, war elephants. Before nukes and drones, planes and guns, there were elephants, the tanks of ancient battlefields. 10,000 war-trained elephants formed the backbone of Ayutthaya's defense. Towering, fast, ridiculously strong, and terrifying when armored, they trampled enemy lines like high-tide waves taking out a sandcastle. But Burma had elephants too. Battles looked like traditional warfare, but with terrifying tusked demolition walls, leaving post-skirmish fields strewn with the carnage of men and beast alike. In 1592 AD, Burma came at Ayutthaya once more, arrogantly overconfident. King Narusuan the Great, then ruler of Ayutthaya, was already a legend in his own time, known during his lifetime for his relentless campaigns to free Ayutthaya from the Tunago Empire vassalage. Legend says that during the Battle of Nong Sarai, he spotted Crown Prince Minjia Swa on the battlefield and did what any badass action movie hero does. Charged in on elephant back and killed him. At least that's how the romanticized tale goes. Swa did die, but the mixed accounts leave a lot of truth off the table, depending on who you ask. However, the end resulted, that bold stroke ended the campaign and put a halt to the constant incursions. For a while. What followed that glorious battlefield victory was almost a century of peace, economic boom, and cultural polish. Trade routes were expanded, the arts flourished, grand elaborate temples rose in every direction over the island plains. But Ayutthaya's rulers weren't naive. They'd seen action for over 4 centuries and wanted security alongside the ability to earn. So they began to plan a relocation. Rivers, they discovered, were good for commerce, less great for defense. River on one side? Good. Rivers surrounding your economic juggernaut? Not so much. They were learning. But peace never lasts. Not when the moral bankruptcy of greed and warmongering stupidity is in play. From 1688 AD to 1767 AD, almost 80 years, Burma returned to its favorite hobby, Ayutthaya invasion. This time, the gloves were off. The Burmese Konbaung dynasty, the subsequent ruling dynasty after the Taungoo, launched increasingly brutal campaigns. And in 176 AD, they finally did what they'd been trying to do over centuries. They razed Ayutthaya to the ground, torched it, leveled the palaces, slaughtered or enslaved every man, woman, and child they found. They melted the Buddha statues for gold. Like I said, insolence and arrogance. It was the end of the Ayutthaya kingdom. What's left today are silent stone stupas, grand palisades and promenades that once rang with laughter and bowed in reverence to wisdom, cultural development, and commerce. Now, precariously leaning prangs and headless Buddhas with carrion crows for company. Walk among them and you'll hear echoes, the screams of slaughter, the cries of indentured anguish, an elephant's trumpet, bells frantically ringing through temple courtyards, all the while foreign merchants loudly negotiating the day's rice price. It's all there, if you pay attention to the brick breath. Because history, like war, has a way of repeating itself, especially when no one's listening. But that was then. My Ayutthaya began differently, with a quiet early morning drive out of the city, no elephant required. One of those slow, unhurried departures that feels like a gentle exhale. The kind of morning where the world seems to move at half speed, and you finally have a chance to catch up with yourself. The Sukhumvit, normally an electric neighborhood of movement, taxis threading through tuk-tuks, food carts ducking out of alleys getting ready for business, scooters making their own lanes through physics and prayer. It was subdued. Even the sky looked wan, a pale, washed-out blue still waking up. The air felt thick and lazy, but not yet pushing towards heat. I picked up thick cardamom and clove-spiced Turkish coffees for the three of us. We rolled east. 80 kilometers passed in a watercolor blur. The highway unfolded in long, looping curves, flanked by low-slung buildings, roadside markets doing brisk breakfast business, and wide plots of farmland not yet swallowed by cement or industry. It was a good kind of real life in between city and country, between noise and silence, between who I had been and whoever I might become. The landscape wasn't trying to impress anyone. It was simply landscape. The original plan? I wanted to see monkeys. Because, well, monkeys. But recently, the Lopburi Monkey Temple, Wat Kai, was reading more like a simian war zone than a tourist destination. Overpopulation led to overstimulation. Overstimulation turned to aggression with more than a touch of ape anarchy. Combined, this was a tinderbox for dangerous moments. Tourists fed the mayhem with ill advised snacks and idiotic selfies. Mouth to mouth banana feeding? Really? And eventually it spiraled. One overzealous tourist tried to selfie with a monkey who was having a bad day and was in no mood for candid photos. The tourist didn't fare so well. Then came the monkey roundups, culling of the more aggressive Mackays, followed by new management policies and a whole lot of finger pointing. So, monkey was off the menu. Instead, we stopped first at the Bang Pa Inn, Royal Palace. I'm glad we did. If you're in the neighborhood, make the time and take in a tour. It's one of those places that catches you off guard by being calmly spectacular. No chest-thumping grandeur, just grace. Sabai, Sabai. Tranquil. Wide boulevards were framed by broad, manicured lawns. Lazy ponds rippling under pastel pavilions. The whole place felt like it was built to soothe the mind. Add buildings that didn't so much clash in style as whisper to each other across cultures. Sam knew everything and shared his knowledge with generosity and enthusiasm. We circumambulated Ho Withon Tanasa, the Sage's Lookout, a vermilion and mustard yellow striped tower built like a lighthouse for royalty who never needed to navigate anything more treacherous than a formal garden party. Add to that a whole lot of gold leaf trim, and you've got an eyeball party happening right in front of you. It looked like something out of a psychedelic dream, a misplaced carnival ride dropped in the tropics. Then there was Wahart Chamrun, or Heavenly Light, a Chinese-style royal palace and throne room, constructed entirely of teak hardwood, lacquered in white and red, then trimmed in gold. The latticed windows and open terraces reflected the yin-yang of Taoist balance. Built by Chinese master craftsmen as a gift from China to the royal family of Thailand, it looked exactly like something out of the Forbidden City. The smell of the wood and incense clung to the air inside, faint yet fragrant. But the standout for me was Uttayan Pumasaytian, a Victorian-style palace that looks like it had been airlifted from the Loire Valley and gently placed on Thai soil. The hall is one of the clearest examples of Siam's hybridization of Western aesthetics during the colonial era, a way of embracing modernity and signaling equality with European monarchies, while still retaining full sovereignty. That's where Tsar Nikolai II, Anastasia, and the rest of the Romanov clan vacationed shortly before returning home where the Bolsheviks had their nasty little photo shoot party in the Yekaterinburg basement. You can almost picture the hem of a grand Romanov dress brushing over the tiled floors and dance, a final moment of luxury before the world turned upside down. The palace was serene, stately, quietly astonishing. Strolling through those grounds felt like I had been invited into a world that was definitely not my own. But damn, I was hungry. We headed to a riverside spot for lunch. Ban mi rim nam Aytthaya. Sam knew the chef well and the menu by heart. I asked him to order the greatest hits of local classics and invited him to eat with me. At first he hesitated, said he'd leave me to it, but I knew how to keep him. I told him I wanted to understand the deeper stories, the real stories, and needed his help. That worked. He smiled and sat. Sira, ever the stoic yet smiling chauffeur, slipped away, against my insistence that he join us, to a shady spot with his lunchbox. Something told me his wife had packed him a perfectly decent meal, possibly the Thai cousin of PB&J, a handful of chips and something cool and fizzy. If you've never had boat noodles, here's the rundown. It's Ayutthaya's culinary flag. A deep, dark broth made with beef stock, soy sauce, a generous inclusion of cow's blood. Stay with me. If I hadn't explained that, you'd be ordering your third bowl. Local spices and a fistful of herbs. Rich, pungent, slightly metallic, very beefy, and totally addictive. After you experience the balance of elements, you want to funnel the stuff in volume over your taste buds. We had the tendon and meatball version. Then came a spread fit for a royal feast. Stir-fried wild boar covered with bird's eye chilies, fried snakehead fish with garlic, green-lipped mussels broiled with an herby cream sauce, crisp basil with salted egg, and a tom kha variant that brought the Thai spice fire. Sam's eyes climbed halfway up his forehead when I started flop sweating, my face almost bursting into flames. But I kept eating, spooning sticky rice into my face like it was a fire extinguisher. It hurt. It was glorious. But it was as hot as a Hades lava lake. Lunch was fantastic, flavorful, rustic, unapologetically bold. But the real gift was Sam. I don't think he's often asked to go beyond the script, but as I leaned in, really leaned in with blunt interrogations, he came alive. Names, dynasties, power plays. It's always fun to learn about the backstabbing politics of days past. Architectural flourishes. It all spilled out in a way that made the past feel intimate, personal, as though those dusty ruins and forgotten royals still mattered. They still whispered their truths into the wind. And then Aytthaya proper. Aytthaya. Once a gleaming city of 1 million people, larger than London or Paris in its prime, a crossroads of trade, culture, and diplomacy. Now it lies in evocative decay, a place where bricks bleed memory. The ruins rose from the earth like a nightmarish dream half remembered. First thing I noticed? The heads. Or rather, the lack of heads. Buddha statues, hundreds of them, all beheaded by Burmese invaders centuries ago. Some of the heads were taken as trophies, which is some seriously disrespectful bullshit vandalism. Some ended up in museums. Some were simply lost to time. All of it left a kind of sacred violence hanging in the air. There's plenty of finger-pointing to go around that's completely justified. When one culture has the insolence to defile another in that manner, that is a crime against humanity and needs to be both recognized and treated as such with zero statute of limitations. It's the kind of history that kicks you in the ass. Wat Ratchat Purana. Wat Ratchaburana was built in 1424 AD by King Boromarachita Tirat II to honor his two brothers who famously killed each other in a duel for the throne. That's one way to avoid a succession crisis. Just skip straight to the next guy. It rose out of the earth, a memory made of stone. Built more than 6 centuries ago, it has the look of something both enduring and delicate. Time, war, and fire had carved its edges, faded its surfaces, and taken a few liberties with the walls, bricks, and surrounding chetty. But still, it stands bold, tall, in defiance against the insults of war. Even in its time-worn state, maybe because of it, the temple is striking. It's less a ruin than a reminder. Sam had called a guy who knew a guy, and thus we were given access to the bowels of a World Heritage Site. I was granted the enormous privilege to climb the steep, near vertical steps up the prang, go inside and then down, 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 through tight, claustrophobic passages, into the central crypt. The experience delivered chills and childlike wonder to my core. Though the artifacts, relics, the gold, and whatever else wasn't nailed down had been looted long ago, the frescoes that adorned the walls and ceiling were as striking as they were sophisticated. Depictions of Jataka tales, stories of the Buddha's past lives. Mount Meru, the sacred cosmic mountain of Buddhist cosmology, court life, celestial beings, and mythical creatures, though faded with time, were breathtaking. I felt a palpable thrum of awe. It is quite special to be allowed into places normally reserved for the learned and worthy when you feel you are neither of those things. I am merely curious, and that seemed enough to satisfy the guardians of the temple. Upon our careful descent, those steps are steep and fragile. We made our way towards a more secluded area of the grounds. The grounds are enormous, so we took an hour-long stroll along paths that had seen centuries of friend and foe alike padding along them. Passing by and through the other famed towers and royal ruins, we wound up in a secluded glen, surrounded by crumbled walls of what had been a royal treasury. Sam, a living Wikipedia, made every wat, stupa, and path burst into historical relevance through knowledge and passion. He must be very popular as a lecturer at his university, because he had that knack for vivid description and historical portrayal that brought everything to life. I sat upon a tree-shaded crumbling wall that was older than me by many centuries, basking in quiet contemplation of what I had seen, when a foursome of elderly monks came into the clearing. They looked at us, surprised. It quickly became apparent they were not used to seeing people in this secluded, remote corner of the grounds. Through Sam, I explained my journey, my brief monastic life, my quest for knowledge, my desire to experience Thailand on her terms, my love affair with Thai culture and its people, and my heartfelt longing to erase the horrors residing in the stones, the bricks, and along the paths that we had wandered. The eldest monk gave me a smile that exuded wisdom. Through Sam, he told me that the past exists to offer lessons. That suffering, once remembered with compassion, loses its sting. Erasing it only ensures it comes again. Another asked why I had disrobed. I said I wasn't ready yet for a life of such nobility, that I still had a lot of stupid to burn through. That received nods of understanding as I showed them memories of my monastery days. Bald, robed, trying my best to look serene and pious. They were kind about it. I mean, really, what's a monk to do? We spoke for a while. Before we parted, they invited us to their temple, Wiharn Fra Mongkon Vopfit, for a private tour and blessing. A kindness I did not expect. But then again, Thailand has had a way of opening doors when I stopped knocking. I was deeply honored. We returned to Bangkok long after the official tour had ended. I would happily have stayed overnight at the temple, but Sam and Sira had homes and lives to return to, and their tour company required the same number of people return as departed. Maybe too many missing bodies in the past. Even so, they lingered. No one seemed in a hurry to split asunder. I'd like to believe they enjoyed the day as much as I did. As we made our way back, I felt something relax, a kind of unburdening. Those ruins, those monks, that land, they didn't demand reverence. They simply extended wisdom like an open hand. Places like Ayutthaya don't shout. They don't clamor for your attention the way modern monuments do. They wait, half buried in vines, metaphorically or otherwise, and silence, for someone willing to stop long enough to hear what they've endured. And when you do, when you sit still among the scorched stone and broken relics, you feel it, the ache of impermanence, the echo of loss, the soft, insistent murmur of resilience. Ayutthaya was once a place of light and music and unimaginable beauty and bustle, but it was brought to its knees by fire, greed, and arrogance. And yet, there it was, weathered, wounded, yet still whispering. History doesn't lecture. It doesn't scold. It simply offers itself as evidence, cracked open and honest, and asked only that you see it clearly, past lies and propaganda. The suffering etched into those ruins isn't meant to make us despair. It's meant to soften us and to remind all that everything we build, everything we cherish, will one day fall away. What really matters in the end is how we hold that truth and each other while we still have time.